Welcome to the Sleevy G Show. I'm your host for your most. My name is Gomez, and tonight, like every single night on my show, there's always a wonderful, fantastic special guest. And tonight, she is a true world traveler. She has done scuba diving. She is spiritually transforming the world. And I'll tell you, she's a motivated speaker. She's a storyteller. And she's got a very cool story to tell, actually, because I'm very interested to hear how she went from a high-powered job to what she is doing now. I got to introduce Sara. Sara, thank you for coming on tonight. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing so good. So I was excited that you actually sent in to Unfiltered Studios. I wasn't sure how many people reached out to you. I was like, wow, interesting, entrance. And I'm like, all right, let me check the Instagram out. And I gotta tell you, the Instagram shows some awesome pictures you've been doing. Traveling around the world, being a motivated speaker, storyteller, but you worked in Wall Street. You were, I'm assuming, a stockbroker at that point. What were you doing
I
in
was
Wall Street?
I was an investment banker. I
Okay,
worked 9 years as a banker. Yeah, especially during the time of the financial crisis in 2008.
and that
So
was some
I
hard
could
times.
definitely write a book about that experience for sure.
I can only imagine. Now, you were doing this for such a long time, investment banking. You're right. 2008, we had the downfall. Now, you made a change. Tell me, how was this change, this transformation? What made you do this flip?
Yeah, well, it's a long story. And in fact, it's a trilogy of my travel adventure memoirs that will be coming out. My first book coming out in 2024 of this year. So I'm very
Oh,
excited
nice.
about that. Yeah,
Congratulations. And
thank
I
you.
can't, and I now I cannot wait to read that book too.
It's great. I can't wait either. I'm like almost done. I have two more chapters to go. So
Nice.
to answer your question, I worked as an investment banker from the time of 2004 into 2012. And then
Okay.
onward, I really started picking up my love of travel. But I found my way through, I kind of call myself an OG in the renewable energy industry. So since I walked away from, Park Avenue in New York
Mhm.
City all that time ago, I kind of had fits and starts into kind of growing into the renewable energy industry, whether it was with government or in private equity or working in industry at an international energy company, which is in New Jersey.
Nice.
So all of that, in those kind of 2012 years to 2022 of January, so we're talking another 10 years,
Mm,
that's when I hit the wall. That's when I said, okay, I'm done. I'm walking away from a 20-year career. And to answer your question, why? Well, I hit a burnout point, a really bad one, and that will
okay.
be in book number two, the surrender part. So the trilogy that I'm thinking about is the awakening and radiating piece, which is 2020 into 2021.
Hmm.
The surrender and adventure is the walking away from a career and going on this big adventure to start to be kind of leveling up my spiritual discoveries.
Hmm.
And then the third book is going to be Transform and Reborn. So that is telling the story of this year. I literally just came back from Guatemala after a week of working with the Mayan medicine women, the indigenous healers. So
Wow.
that was coming out of the Temescal, the Sweat Lodge, and kind of being reborn into kind of this new direction I'm going into. So it's quite a story.
That
And
is.
yeah, so hitting the burnout point is kind of where I want to really motivate people too, because I think you and I know, just talking right now,
Mhm.
kickstarting this, the last 2 months have been a bunch of hard months, and the
And
energy
they
is kind of
haven't.
getting tough. And I think a lot of people are starting to hit these surrender points where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Something just isn't feeling right anymore. And I kind of want to start
Anxiety's up.
exploring. Yeah. So
Anxiety's up, and it stresses up, and tempers flare at family houses. Trust me, we know. I have high anxiety and stress, because I'm worried about I'll say my wife and my kids, because of their well-being, because I'm more not just a provider, but I'm also the protector. You know what I mean? So I take that very seriously. Where someone takes a shot at one of my family members, it's like you're really poking a bear, and that's something I'm very protective of. And something I work on too with anxiety and stress. I actually do talk to somebody because I actually need to. I've been doing it for the past 2 years now because I need to speak because I don't have, besides my wife, I do talk to my wife, don't get me wrong, but there's more to it than some things, you know what I mean? Like I actually keep myself busy with adult coloring books, which I can just get lost into it for a couple hours. And it's kind of funny. I build Legos. I've
Great.
I've done there's actually one behind me. Actually, there you go. Once I move my big head, that's the 1989 Batwing
Oh, no way. That's a
from
Lego?
that is a
Wow.
Lego that I have built up there. That's
Holy
the
mackerel.
yes, you can curse on this show, so don't worry.
Okay.
Because I've dropped my share of bombs sometimes.
Us
Um,
us tri-staters. What the fuck is
yeah, exactly.
I
Trust
got
me.
a New York in me.
That's awesome. And you said like, see, that's the funny thing. Like, we literally just met not even 10 minutes ago, and I feel like we have a good connection because you're like me. Yes, we're from the tri-state, everybody. New York, New Jersey. You gotta
Connecticut.
understand, Connecticut, we all think alike. And once you bump us and you don't apologize, you will get a wrath. You'll get something sarcastic, you'll get a finger or two, or we'll drop some F-bombs at you if you don't say sorry. But the connection between us, like it's amazing because you don't get the chance to meet people like that, like this, you know what I mean? And to hear and to see what you've done. I mean, I look at some of these pictures. I mean, you were just in Guatemala. I mean, that still had to be an awesome trip. And then I look at some of your pictures of where have you gone. I mean, Indy Horse Relay.
Oh, yeah, that was in North Dakota,
What-
the Indian Horse Relay. In
Yeah,
fact, the winners, they were Dancing Warrior from the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, right near the Badlands. In fact, I was there in
that's
2021. Yeah,
that's
they
so awesome.
won the men's division, and they were featured on ESPN. They did a feature on Christmas Eve. I saw it, and the
Nice.
two of them, Brew Crew and the Dancing Warriors, they were featured in ESPN. So the Indian Horse Relay is big. And my friend
Yes.
Jason is head of special projects at their MHA Nation tourism effort.
Oh,
And so
nice.
I've gotten to know Jason a few years now. And he invited me out to Minot, North Dakota at the North Dakota State Fair to profile the Indian Horse Relay. It was fantastic. It was
Uh,
absolutely great. And I'm really proud of them
mhm.
because this is their second year running and they've had a full house twice.
That's
I
awesome.
want to say thousands of people. And the Indian horse race is starting to become very interesting for a lot of people. Just indigenous ways, indigenous tourism is of interest now
Mhm.
lately too. And so I'm very proud of them. They've kickstarted their efforts. They've had people come from France, from
Wow.
Germany, and from Italy. Yeah, because when people travel to America, sometimes they really want to see cowboys and Indians.
They
And so
do.
why
They
not?
do.
Let's bring them to North Dakota and check
And
out the
that's a great
buffalo.
and that's a great spot too. I mean, even checking out the Badlands, that's like a check, that's like a bucket list of places I would love to go visit. Everyone goes, why would you want to go there? It's just the rich history. There's more to it. Listen, I'm dying to go to Cuba. I'm Cuban. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I was the first in my family to be American born. My mom's Cuban, my dad's Peruvian. And rest your soul, Dad. I love you to death. But Cuba's one spot I like to go to because for years the embargo, you were not allowed to go in. Now it's kind of hard now with the two young kids and my wife to go to Cuba, especially two youngins who don't know a word of Spanish yet. They're learning. I'm teaching them good. Um, that's one trip, and then going to Peru is another for special reasons. My dad unfortunately passed a long time ago, and I said I made a vow and a promise that I would go to South America, to Peru one day, and rest my dad's soul, climb a little mountain that he wants me to climb, which I don't think I'm in the best shape for, but I will do it no matter what. And if that's the way I go, that's the way I go. But that's something I would love to do. But I've noticed you've traveled almost, I feel like around the world, everywhere. I felt like, looking some of the great pictures you have. When you started this venture of yours a couple of years ago, what was the first spot you went to?
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. Embolden Adventures, I started in 2016, but
Mhm.
I had been traveling prior to that. And so I wanted to kind of go back to what you were saying about your Legos and your
Yeah.
coloring
Oh,
books
yes, yes,
and
please.
and finding, peace and solace
Mhm.
in those sort of art, expression of art and creativity. Embolden Adventures was my coloring book. It was my Lego set because
It's your
at
baby.
yeah, it was my creative outlet. It was my passion project for a while, and why it kind of became what it is and where it continues to go for,
Mhm.
my big plans for rolling this out. I was out of work for 2.5 years. I was unemployed and
Okay,
I was
that's
holding down a mortgage in New York City, my apartment I still have by myself. I'm my only breadwinner. I live by myself. And so, trying to find a job sometimes can be very difficult. And in my case, it took 2.5 years because I was in a renewable energy industry that was still nascent in some
mm,
ways. So it was very hard to find a job in an industry that didn't have job descriptions out there. You had to kind of make it in your own way.
right.
And so my creative outlet kind of in my darker days was teaching myself how to build a website and start to write and start to communicate my love of travel because I believe the why I called it Embolden Adventures is because I believe you're emboldened when you get out there to see the
Mhm.
world. You saw how excited I got just talking about the Indian horse relay. I
Yes,
went to North Dakota. How cool is that?
it is
Something
actually
like
cool.
that.
It is because it's funny, not everyone goes, "Oh, I wanna go to Florida for the beaches and Disney." Texas, because everything is big in Texas. You go for the food, you go for well, actually for the food. Louisiana, that's more me. I go for the food because I like steaks, I like barbecue. You go to Louisiana, it's the French Quarter, the history of the Gators. Me was again food, but I had my grandfather live in Louisiana. North Carolina, visiting the Carolinas, the Grand Banks. New Jersey, just because I am New Jersey, it's the Jersey Shore, you know what I mean? New York City, it's the ambiance of going into New York, seeing the Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building, all the major plays and everything that you can go, Times Square, Massachusetts, Boston, the rich history of, there's so much to do, and especially in the middle states that people don't realize. North Dakota, South Dakota, you go to Sturgis for bike
Hmm.
week, you know what I mean?
I was
Some
there in South Dakota during Sturgis. It was very interesting.
and
It,
that's
it was
something
fun. I
I can
had
only
such a great
imagine.
time. I literally
I
started talking to bikers. I'm like, hey, what do you think?
You know what's funny is that I'm not a biker, but I used to watch the show American Chopper, and West Coast Jesse James' show West Coast Bikes, when they go to Sturgis, and I just watch them like, God, I wish I learned how to drive a bike. I really, I think I would have loved going to Sturgis every year, just to not even just because of the crazy, it's just because how people actually can put aside their crazy, and I'm going to say this, their crazy shit. Doesn't matter if there's a club, you guys are a part of a motorcycle club or not. You guys can all put it all together and be as one happy family. Especially when you're at the Buffalo Wild Chip place. Where you hear a lot of good bands, a lot of crazy music. So that's something that's always interested me to see, the world. I mean, I've been up and down the whole East Coast. I've been to California. Um, I love to go to Chicago. There's more stuff to see and to do. You know,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah,
and that's what some people don't realize it. I mean, if I ever have the opportunity to say, if I ever get tired, get burnt out on my job, which I don't think I will be anytime soon because I'm still paying the mortgage, like you said. Um, just to get in an RV, take the family, and just drive. It doesn't matter where you go. There's something to go to.
that's right.
Pennsylvania, Chicago, Michigan, South Dakota, North Dakota, Mount Rushmore, all these places, there's a lot of exciting things to see.
Absolutely. And so when we did this North Dakota, South Dakota trip in 2021, we stopped through in Sturgis. I don't ride a motorcycle. I ride an electric scooter in New York City.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so here I am hanging out with the biker dudes, and it's actually kind of cool. We had our car, so we drove through with the car, and
Mhm.
you could park your car, walk around, have some drinks with like the parties that are going on there, and then we continued onward. You just drive out. west, and it's just open land.
Right.
But Sturgis was great, and you go there, there's music, but what I recommend is not necessarily staying in Sturgis. I would
Mm.
recommend going to there's what is it, Cushing State Park or National
Yes.
Forest? There's
National Forest Park. Yes.
Yeah, in South Dakota. So during Sturgis, people actually go out with their bikes and go for
Mm.
rides. And if
Yes.
you're in that state park, or I think it's a national park, I have to look back.
I think it isn't. I think
Custer State Park. That's what
it
it
is a
was.
state park. Yes, I do know
Custer,
that.
yeah. So we took our car and we were interspersed between motorcycles
Hmm.
driving around the national park. And it's almost like if you could imagine like a ski slope, because the ways that the roads are built, it's like one
Hmm.
lane and you're
Right.
driving like kind of around beautiful
Kirby.
pine trees, and then you
Yeah.
stop off and you see, Mount Rushmore in the distance and all these rock formations. They have tunnels through
Hmm.
a big kind of like mountain that they blasted through, and
Wow.
you're with the bikers.
That's
So
so
you're,
cool.
it was so cool. Yeah,
That
so
is
I
so
would
cool.
recommend it. So rent a car, get your RV, whatever you want to do, whether it's up the Pacific Coast Highway or through the Dakotas, and go see, because that area by Rushmore,
Hmm.
what is it, the Black Hills, we did a
Black
hot air
Hills.
balloon ride. Yeah, it is beautiful. It is a beautiful part of the country.
Does
And it's
sound
one of
so
those
amazing.
places, yeah, that's kind of not on the radar. So if you can get there and get there, when you can, just kind of devote some time with your family, you'll
Hmm.
you'll definitely have a good time. I
Oh,
highly
without a
recommend
doubt.
it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, we go down to Wildwood every year with the family. It's like our yearly, big trip that we do. And I look forward to every year because now with my kids growing up, I can say, hey, when I was a kid, and which is kind of funny saying that. I remember my parents saying that to me when they were kids, you know what I mean? And when my parents came into the country, I I realized how much they put and struggled with, you know, it's kind of funny when you're looking at the prices then in the 80s, like when I was born in the late 79 into the early 80s, you're thinking, I remember a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle big action figurine was 4.99. At that point, that was expensive. You look now, they're 18.99. You're like, what the hell? Like, you can see how much time has changed.
Oh, sure. Hamburgers are $28 in Queens, New York. I had paid $28 for a hamburger last week at Queens.
Holy
Is
shit.
that crazy? And like a
That's
slice of
nuts.
pizza is minimum 350 now.
I went out to dinner with my wife last Saturday night to a place in Little Ferry called Segovia. Now, it's one of my favorite spots when I lived in Rutherford because literally where I used to work at Sherwin-Williams, it was directly across the street. So I would spend a couple times a night at dinner there by myself. I'd take the dinner home to watch TV. Like it was $40. I didn't care. But I took my wife there, ordered the same meal, had a glass of sangria, no dessert, and soda for after dinner. I always had to have one because of the food. I was just like, oh my God, I'm done. Um, it was like $200 with tip. I was like,
That's
shit, we
getting
were.
steep, man.
It
Starting
is,
to
but
get steep.
you know what it is? When my wife and I get date night, we go out. We have to, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was unfortunately it was her birthday a couple weeks ago and she wasn't feeling good. So Saturday night, even though she was good, but we it was an impromptu, like we didn't know what was gonna happen. My in-laws like, I'll take the kids again. We're like, deal, gone. It was like that Friday night we just found out before we decided to go out. So it was just we decided on dinner at the last second. And we're like, all right, let's just go. You know what I mean? Get in the car. Let's just go.
Well, what I would suggest, I know you mentioned Disney World and I know you mentioned Texas and traveling the United States. And one of the things why I want to encourage world travel,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many beautiful reasons. It's such an enriching experience for your life to get out there beyond your comfort zone, beyond, your country, and go
Yes.
see how other cultures around the world live their lives. And people think, oh, well, that's expensive. Well, honestly, going to Disney World is much more expensive. It's actually ridiculously expensive from what I understand. Yeah, exactly. And
And they're
so
raising and they're jacking up their prices in
I've
2025.
heard, I know. So what I would encourage, and I actually got into a little bit of a spat with someone on Instagram about this. I say that, if you can figure out how to get on a plane and you can get into, let's say, in my case, Guatemala, which is gonna be the up and coming hotspot.
Mhm.
You're gonna start hearing more and more people going to Guatemala.
Yeah.
It was so affordable. And it's the plane that costs some dollars, obviously, to get
Oh
on.
yeah,
But
exactly.
if you're smart with your credit card points, I don't pay for plane tickets most often because I have a
Because you
lot of
have
points.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, like I flew to Africa, the continent of Africa, twice for free using credit card points. So
Holy shit.
once you're
That's got to be
there,
awesome though too.
yeah, but once you're there, it was absolutely awesome. We climbed Mount Kilimanjaro one at the time, so we were in Tanzania. So once you're there, though, once you're in, Southeast Asia, once you're
Mhm.
going to these gorgeous places around the world that most often are safe, you realize how inexpensive, how affordable beautiful travel can be. And so that's what I want to kind of put into your head as well. Like it
Yeah.
can be done,
Oh,
and
I
you don't
know.
have to spend the $28 on the hamburger,
No, you don't. I remember
It could be $28 for your entire family in Guatemala.
when my wife and I we were discussing our honeymoon. My honeymoon was Turks and Caicos. I said, "What am I going to do there?" First of all, I wasn't a beach guy. I'm a pool guy. I love the pool. And I'm like, what am I going to do in Turks and Caicos? Where am I going to go? Oh, how about St. Tropez? What am I going to do there? I'm such a United States Jersey guy that likes the woods. I'll go to Pennsylvania for the woods. I remember when I was younger, I used to go out with weekends with my buddies, four-wheeling, campfires, hot dogs on a stick. That was more me. My wife is Jersey Shore, mall, city life. I don't get me wrong, I went to the city a ton of times too. So when I went to Turks, I'll tell you, Turks and Caicos is probably it was a very poor country. I'll tell you this, when we landed, you're getting off on the tarmac.
Yeah.
And so that was something new to me. That first of all, I'm like,
Yeah,
whoa,
that's
wait a
that's
minute.
that's island life for you.
That's yeah, first time I ever been on an island. You know what I mean? I will admit to that. And what's cool is we're at the airport and the luggage rack is the old 80s luggage rack. And I'm like, I look in the thing, I'm like, hey, go, there's my luggage. And I go, it goes, it's lunch. And I go, dude, but my two suitcases are right there. I'll throw you $40. Just hand them over. It's like, seriously? I go, listen, you hand it over, I'll give you 40. The guy was like, deal. He's right at the exit right there. And let me tell you, the island was so beautiful. I've never seen water so blue at the beach. And day two there, I'm like, hey, let's go. We got to get our seats at the beach and everything because it was so breathtaking, and I've never experienced anything so beautiful for myself. I mean, for me, going to California, going to Canada, you know what I mean? I always love going to Canada too. Um, Never been to Mexico, but it's just the amazing part of going somewhere that I've never been to, seeing how other people live, though. That's like you said, seeing the locals how they were and how nice they were, how helpful and how respectful people can be, even for an out of towner. We rented bikes. I'll never forget. The hotel had bikes. Doesn't matter. It's not even renting. You can say you just grab it and go. So it's been a while since I've been on a bike. Me and my wife, we rode our bikes to the local supermarket. It's like 6 long blocks. It was beautiful. We went and going to the supermarket, we're like, wow, the culture's totally different. The driving is definitely different because it's the left side, not our normal right side.
Cayman's like that too, Cayman
Yes, the
Islands.
Cayman Islands. And I'll tell you, the culture was different for me because I'm a seafood kind of guy. So it was a lot of fresh seafood.
Hmm.
I got to experience conch ceviche, which I've
Hmm.
never had. That was delicious, especially with spicy nacho Doritos.
Spicy. Yeah, I was gonna
Yes,
say conch is always spicy, but be careful.
yeah, but it was actually good. It was really good. Um, I did enjoy it because he was literally caught right there. I'm like, damn, that was quick, but it
The
was
best sushi I've ever had is on a beach in Palau. They caught that tuna right
right
there.
there.
Yeah.
And that's
Hmm.
amazing. And seeing, we went to, I think it was a place called Lizard Island, and actually seeing the lizards, I was like, oh, now I know what they call Lizard Island. And I remember we saw a stingray. Me and my wife were on the ocean. Stingray swim right under us. I always wanted to go snorkeling. I did the snorkeling, and I'm like, babe, I just saw a big lobster like this big. I'm like, I want that. She goes, you ain't getting it. So
Well, let me
just,
ask you this. How
yeah,
did you feel when you were with the ocean and you're snorkeling and you're
I'm gonna
with
be honest.
nature and you're kind of like in
I
island life,
felt amazing because that was the first
right?
time I've been to an island besides Puerto Rico. But that was Puerto Rico. I was so young, and I really didn't understand at that time. Now that I've gotten older and to appreciate things, you know what I mean? And that being in the ocean, being in a different atmosphere and a different lifestyle, like everyone's chill, everyone's like, I wouldn't call it partying though. That was the thing. What I loved. It was it was more like people just hanging out and relaxing and having a good time.
It was a connection. So why I'm asking this question is
Mhm,
because you were saying earlier how you felt very stressed out and anxious in the last 2 years in
mm,
particular, which really is my 2022 surrender point to today. You know, a
right.
lot of people are going through this.
Hmm.
And the reason why I travel and I've had traveled, I've worked really intense jobs,
Right.
really intense kind of work hard, play hard kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in order for me to balance, it was to get out there to
Mm,
scuba dive, to get out there to see the world, to get on a plane, when no one can reach you. You're in the sky looking out and you're thinking about things that just aren't the day to day. You
yeah.
start to ponder really philosophical questions. You start to look within and you start to connect. And
That
that
was.
connection to the ocean you
Mhm,
did in that, Turks and Caicos
yeah.
example, that has real powerful properties, electromagnetic properties. It helps to, center you again. It helps you to kind of be calm.
It actually
So
was.
the beach is an important thing. That's why travel is important because
It
it
is.
helps to get you out of this like thinking that you're in your current day to day.
Mhm.
And it helps you to look in a new perspective because the world isn't always the way
That
you're
it
living.
does.
The
No,
world lives in its own way, and so many,
to be honest,
millions of examples out there, billions of examples for that matter.
no, and that's true because that was the first time well, I mean, I've been on vacations, but this was the first time like I went away where I had to literally shut my cell phone off, checked my emails only like once a day. I wouldn't check it all the time like I do, like say now between my show and my work life, you know what I mean? But I remember not having my phone on. That was very hard for me because this thing is attached to my hip, with the kids, my mom, my wife, my in-laws, whoever, if they need to reach me, this thing is like the schools, they need me. I'm boom, right there. But when I shut the cell phone off, it was like you said, it was a different world and a different place to be because I've never had a legit vacation before. And to hop on a plane and know that I can't turn on my phone because even though we had the international phone line installed to both of our phones, all we did was just call
Didn't
home.
matter. Yeah, it's a waste of
We
money.
we called maybe a couple times and say hi to
It's
everybody.
always,
Just
nope, you use your Wi-Fi. You could do calls on WhatsApp. It's a
yeah,
waste of money. Don't pay for it.
well, not any
Trust me. Just
now
get
I
a SIM
know.
card.
Yeah, exactly. Now not anymore, but that was our first time like I've traveled. So, I really just was like, oh my God, God, the blue sea, the seeing how Chris, I mean, it was funny. We met a lovely couple, and it- her and her wife, they were scuba divers, just like you were.
Yep, just like me.
And it was kind of funny. I remember they came back from scuba diving excursion that they did that morning, and I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? They're like, oh my God, you should have saw it. I'm like, I go, listen, I'll do snorkeling. I don't know if I'm scuba ready. I go, it sounds adventurous. Like I love the idea. But she goes, oh my God, you should have saw the tiger sharks. I go, Yeah, I seen the movie Into the Blue.
No, no, no. Don't
No,
listen
no,
to the
no,
movies. I'm
no,
telling
no,
you,
I know.
the sharks are afraid of you underwater. You're just as large as I've seen tiger sharks. They've crossed my path,
Oh,
and they're afraid of your bubbles.
they're
And
curious
when
too.
they're well, they're like puppy dogs,
Yeah.
actually. I really love sharks. I mean, we saw a bunch of great whites, so I wouldn't recommend getting into the water with the great whites. We were in a cage for that. But
Hmm.
the tiger sharks, other sharks, if you're underwater with them, you're just as large as they are with your fins and whatever
Yeah.
else. They don't like your bubbles and they aren't used to you. The reason why people are getting attacked by sharks is because you're on the surface. And
Yeah.
sharks are curious because they'll give a quick curious bite. They can't see. They're actually surprise attack predators.
Mhm.
And they think you're probably a seal or a turtle and the splashing is making
Right.
them curious. But once you're underwater, they're not
They're
going to bother
normal.
you. And I
No,
say that Scout's honor. I've been on more than 300 scuba dives around the world.
no, I believe that.
You want to see sharks in the water because sharks indicate that the water ecosystem is healthy. When you
Oh,
don't
without a
see
doubt.
sharks, that's quite scary because now the ecosystem underwater is breaking down.
Yeah, I mean, I think was it last year? Yeah, the migrating of the sharks going from like Boston all the way down the shore. And I remember last year we were able to see from our hotel room like a school of sharks, like
Isn't that
literally.
cool?
I was just like, wow, that was like the coolest thing I've ever seen
Amazing, right?
the sharks. And I'm just like, wow. I always loved sharks. That was one thing, that was the one animal I always said I loved just because even besides the movie Jaws, even though he was not the biggest great white you'll ever see, but seeing that, but I'm always attached to watching when Discovery has Shark Week
Shark Week, of course.
because
Yeah, and they show you that the shark will not eat the pig. It will always
no,
eat the tuna. And the
yeah,
pig is, has the same sort of, I guess, makeup as a human, right? We're kind of
exactly.
similar that way. So they always spit the pig out. It's like, see, the shark doesn't want to eat a human. They haven't evolved to eat the human.
They'll take the tuna though. They'll take your tuna.
100%, but
And
they
so,
won't take you.
but I'll tell you this: if I'm fishing for tuna and a shark came out to it, I'm fighting the shark for my tuna.
Okay,
I
that's
love,
fine.
I love tuna too. That's the problem. It's
Did did you know, speaking of sharks, since we're both East Coasters,
Mhm.
that the shark sanctuary for great whites is off the New Jersey and New York, like sort of off the Long Island Sound, like southern part of Long Island Sound. So that like little part where it all comes together,
Yeah, no, I did.
Long Island and Jersey and Staten Island. If you kind of go out to the continental shelf, they've discovered a great white shark nursery. So all the baby great whites get born there.
Holy shit! No, I did not
Hmm.
know that. No,
Oh yeah.
that's actually kind of
And they're
cool to
coming
see.
back because they were down, their numbers were down a lot. And partly
Hmm.
why they're coming back now, along where they naturally are, up by Cape Cod and
Hmm.
down by Jersey and wherever else, Long Island, Rhode Island, that part, is because the seals are coming back.
Yeah,
The seals. So the seals were almost killed to extinction in like the New England area, Connecticut, elsewhere, because all those cod fishermen up by Gloucester, our friends up in
yeah.
Boston,
Then
they were killing off the seals and upwards even as late as 1960s. And
and
now there's a conservation effort to bring the seals back, and now naturally the sharks are back. So that's why you're seeing more and more great whites in the water these
that's
days.
a great thing to see. I'm all about listen, fishing for food to put food on the table, I totally get, but to kill off animals just because of their skin or something like that, I'm not prone for it. You got to save the system a little bit. You know what I mean? There's got to be a stop somewhere. Like, listen, I get it. It does happen when you catch them in the net. Sometimes it does happen, but to actually hunt them down to kill them, it's like I remember there was a show, Whale Wars, the way how the guys always
Oh
protected the whales.
yeah.
You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Sea
And
shepherd.
Sea Shepherd. There you go. I couldn't remember the
Hmm.
name. I remember the show name was Whale Wars.
Hmm.
To see them do what they're doing now, did I find some of their antics a little, yes, but they're trying to help save the conversation, the whales. You know what I mean? Like without whale life, there's no ecosystem either. Just
That's
like
right.
and that's including the sharks, the turtles.
Yeah,
Am I an environmentalist? No, I'm not, but I do care about the animals though.
as you should. One thing I'll say, as you know, I mentioned before, I was a renewable energy
Hmm.
executive for almost 20 years. And part of the problem with climate change right now is we're cutting down too many trees. You need
Oh, yeah.
trees, obviously, to take in the carbon dioxide and, the greenhouse gases that we're putting, that the nature
Mhm.
can't keep up with the cycle of it. But also, people don't talk about this. The real lungs of the earth are the Amazon rainforest, but they're also the oceans.
Mhm.
And so the
I didn't
more
know
and
about the
more.
oceans.
Oh, sure.
That's new for me.
Think about algae, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Algae
yeah.
is like a plant, and so algae in the ocean takes in the carbon dioxide and makes oxygen, just like like the leaves of a plant or a tree would. And so when you start overfishing the ocean, like we're at critical states at the moment, and you start taking out the apex predator, you start killing off the whale, especially if you're taking your container ships and you're shipping them back and
Mhm.
forth the Pacific Ocean, there's lots of whale strikes.
Oh, yeah.
So those whales, the whole ecosystem, the whole circle of life, their whale poop actually fuels the algae, the
It
little
does.
desidins, the little kind of critters at the microscopic level. So if we keep destroying, the ocean's ecosystem, like I mentioned before, like if you take the apex predator, that can be the shark. It's also the orca. The killer whale is actually the
Mhm.
apex predator. But if you take the shark out, it's akin to taking out the wolf at Yellowstone,
Yeah.
right? When the wolf dies, those deer start to overpopulate.
Mhm.
And that starts to kind of disrupt the land's ecosystem.
Yeah.
The same goes for the shark. If the shark is out, and like I said, if you don't see a shark diving, the ecosystem is probably not the most healthiest it can be. Those coral reefs start to get out of whack. And a lot of sharks are being killed not because of nets, but because of the Chinese. And I
Mhm.
say that because they say about 100 million sharks are killed a year for shark fin soup. And the
Yes.
more and more that the Chinese start to just literally fish the shark, cut their fins off while they're alive, throw the shark back in to die, they don't even take the meat. These sharks don't have a chance to reproduce because sharks live up to 70 years of age and they reproduce at like 15 or 20 years. They can become sexually mature at that age when they're 20. So when sharks don't get a chance to repopulate and they're being killed off in the millions, hundred of
Mhm.
millions, just for their cartilage, that is their fin, to make soup for Chinese weddings. So the more and more China becomes affluent, the more and more they're going to demand shark fin soup. And so
That's a
they're
thing.
killing these sharks off without giving the shark a chance to repopulate itself, its species. And so you're destroying the ocean that way too. Also, the trawlers. We talk a lot about, the fishing, and we were saying
Mhm.
the example in Gloucester, give
Yeah.
give the seal a chance.
Yeah.
The trawlers, we saw this when we were in Australia. There was a trawler boat that one of the Aussies, the police, whatever they were, the ocean police, if
Mm.
you will, I don't know what they are, they had them detain this illegal trawler. And what trawlers do, it's pretty bad. They basically put these scrapers that like go to the bottom of the ocean and they
Mhm.
scrape however long they are, these scrapers, and they scrape everything in its path. And from the scraper to the ocean's bottom to the top of the boat is a big net. And so they're
Mhm.
basically destroying everything, and the bycatch is double what they're actually looking for. So that's destroying the ocean too. There's a lot of problems. However, back to travel,
Right.
because eco sanctuaries, especially in the oceans, are being formed all the time now, where they're
Mhm.
protecting the oceans. And you'll see eco sanctuaries out in Easter Island in Chile. You'll see them in Cocos Island, which is in Costa Rica.
Okay.
You'll see them everywhere. They're starting to pop up more and more. Where
There's
they
actually a
re
Turks and
Palau as an
Caicos. Yeah.
example. Yeah, so they're realizing these countries, right? We're talking about small countries
Mhm.
that rely on tourism. You find, like a diver like me and a potential diver like you eventually, that a shark is worth more in the ocean than it is on a dinner plate, because that shark is a reoccurring revenue for
Mhm.
people every time to want to see something underwater. It
Yeah.
also encourages the fishermen to become tour operators because they could still drive boats.
But
They'll
to see
drive a
the
dive boat
sharks,
instead.
yeah.
Correct.
And so you get to see
So
the sharks. You get the glass bottom boat, and you can see. You can never know. You might even see a great white pop out of nowhere.
that's awesome.
That would
Then
be the
then
greatest
you
thing
have a
ever.
story to say for the rest of your life. I saw a great white shark. How cool is that? And guess
A-
what? You just gave your local dollars to the local tourism effort.
And that's something that everybody does need. And that's the coolest thing to do too. I have to ask this question though. like you said, you've done over 300 dives.
Mhm.
What is your favorite dive spot? I have to find out now.
Oh, there's so many. Well, my favorite is Cocos Island, as I
Okay.
mentioned. Cocos is the last 2% of pristine oceans in the world. This is kind of ironic. I was actually having dinner one time in Nobu, downtown in Tribeca,
Mhm.
and Leonardo DiCaprio was there. I kid you not. He was sitting right next to me
Oh,
at the table,
that's so
and
awesome.
well, the reason why I mentioned this is because I was Googling with my friend. I'm like, what is he doing here? He was there during, I guess, the UN, when the United Nations is here in
Mhm.
September every year, they do their summit. He just had given, I think, like a $3 or $4 million donation to Oceana, which is a
Okay.
nonprofit to save the oceans. Or it was either Oceana or it was another one, but
Yeah, he
they were
does. I know.
celebrating. They were celebrating the fact, and he was with those people, I suppose. But he also dove Cocos. And
Oh,
I
that's
read this article that he was so wowed by how beautiful these dives were.
mhm.
This is my favorite dive you asked, and it's 360 I think miles out to sea in the Pacific Ocean from Costa Rican shore. And because they're protecting the 12 nautical miles
Mhm.
around this particular island, it's at the levels that the ocean should be if we never fish the oceans. This is where I saw the tiger sharks. I saw a massive whale shark, maybe 45 feet long. I saw tuna fish just diving in. I saw schools of hammerhead sharks. It's where Jacques Cousteau dove. This place called Alcyon. It's a dive site there. Um, it's just incredible what you see in Cocos Island. It's the
And the
basis
rich
for,
history.
yeah, Treasure Island, I think, is
I
Jonathan, with
think it
that
was
Lewis Stevenson wrote a
John
book
Lewis
about
Stevenson.
that.
Yep.
And then Jurassic Park is kind of based on Cocos
It
Island.
was.
So if you could
Yes, it
just
is.
imagine. So that was one of my best dive experiences. And there's a dive boat that's not the dive boat I was on, the
Mhm.
liverboard. There was a dive boat called the Argo that was next to us. And that dive boat actually had this little submarine vessel that if we wanted to, we could have gone to the submersible and gone down to like 4,000 feet to see underwater.
That would
So
be such
it's
a that
not to
that's a
be
trip.
missed.
Yeah, definitely
It's
not.
not to be missed,
That
Cocos,
sounds
but
like
it's for experienced divers. Like, you need to wear a GPS tracking device on your scuba diving
mhm.
BC because God forbid you get swept out to sea, at least they know where to find you.
Exactly, because the
Yeah.
ocean, when
Those currents are pretty strong.
you're talking 365 miles out of
Yeah.
Costa
Yeah,
Rica
in the Pacific Ocean. So
in the Pacific Ocean.
it's sort of like the Galapagos where, if you
S-
kind of look on a map, you see
mhm.
all these like islands kind of that hug the
Yes.
Pacific Ocean. It's north of the Galapagos. If you can imagine like how the Galapagos are sort of about, this is
Mhm.
like them.
And just and when people don't realize how strong, especially when you're in the middle ocean, everybody goes, "Oh, I've been to the ocean." No, you have not. You have
No,
not
you have
been.
not. Not
I
not in 6 foot swells when you're
no,
scuba diving.
exactly, or even in a small boat with 6 foot swells.
Yeah.
It's funny. You see all those TikToks with the Carnival cruise ships and all these swells. I'm like, this is nothing compared to what you can go through a small boat.
Oh, sure. The amount of people that were seasick that went when we went from Costa Rica, it took 36 hours to get out there from Punta Arenas, which is the port
Wow,
city. Yeah, and like
a day and a half.
I realize I'm not seasick, thankfully, but
Good.
practically everyone on the boat was, and that was pretty awful.
Oh God. Yeah, if you don't have
And
your
that
sea
wasn't that
legs,
bad, that boat ride. It was like, not that choppy, the water, just
I
people are seasick.
it was kind of
Yeah.
funny. I don't know if I'm not, but I remember 15 years ago I went fishing out in New Jersey out in the ocean. It was like it was like a half a day tour that we went out, and I remember he's like, "Oh, do you get seasick?" I go, "I don't know. I've never been on a boat. I've never gone boat fishing and drinking at the same time." So it was kind of funny, and like
Oh no, that sounds like a bad combination.
actually it was not because I was actually not seasick. Surprisingly, I actually stood on my side in front of the boat, just fat. I was fishing and drinking on my own, totally fine. And then my buddy, who said, "Oh, I'd never get seasick," he was sick as a dog. I enjoyed
Oh
every minute of it.
no.
I enjoyed
They
every
say
minute
it's
of
a
it.
frequency though. They say everyone can get seasick. Again, I don't know, but they say everyone can get seasick, but it depends on the frequency of like the
The
waves, and
Eves.
everyone has their own trigger. And apparently those little bands you could buy at the
Mhm.
drugstore, they work.
They do.
So they're
Right.
like pressure points. So I would
Mhm.
recommend that. And
Yep.
then just, you know, maybe don't test it, but some people are a little bit more sensitive than others, but at some point everybody will get seasick depending on the
And
frequency.
I know somebody who gets, I would just say motion sickness in a car ride too, so if long car rides. I know a few people and they have those bands for that. It's hard because I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, you know what I mean? But I've seen friends get sick too. So it's a good thing to have those. You never know
You
because
never know.
things happen, bodies change, as
And
like
don't drink.
yeah, no,
You
no, no,
want to
no,
be
no, no.
hydrated.
Yeah, I will say that. Don't drink, guys. Please don't. But to like, like the ecosystem, everything is always changing. Your body's changing, the ecosystem's changing. Um, it's kind of funny. One of my favorite actors besides DiCaprio was always Paul Walker. I was always a, huge fan of him. But what was funny was I didn't know the stuff that he did besides the movies, like going to South Africa to first aids, doing things like that. He had his always evolving shirt on, and you saw in the Fast and Furious. I'm like, what is this? And no one ever knows that it was his organization to help countries, oceans, things like that. Like he actually was a an activist for it, and that was pretty cool. Like Leonardo DiCaprio, it's like you don't see that a lot. Everyone says, "Oh, he's a big movie star. He doesn't care about anybody." But then when a star like him passes on, and then you see all his stuff, you're like, I never knew that.
Mm.
Like I knew he was always humble, but I never knew he went out of his way to make sure to go to South Africa to a small village that the kids are so sick that he brought medical attention to that area. You know what I mean? So that's something I always look up to and to people who do that, even for the ecosystem too, because it's difficult. You want that ocean to survive. You
You
want the
do.
you it's not you don't, you need to have that ocean survive. Like I remember like even when my daughter goes, oh, jokingly I always say, Isabella, you're a great swimmer this year. I'm gonna hook a little hook here. I'm gonna sing you out to the ocean, see if I can get a great white for you. I'm using you as bait, like joking around. But she's like, what is a great white? I show her pictures, like, wow. I go, that's a big shark. But I go, this is what we're seeing in New Jersey. Like we're seeing sharks. And like she didn't realize, I'm like, we're still gonna go in the water, but if they come up, we're just gonna be careful, especially you, because they're curious, like you said, they're curious. And that's something, I kind of learned from kind of funny Shark Week, what I mean, listening to them because you never know, because they can come up. The last couple of years, I feel like they've come up the Jersey Shore and out by Long Island, Mantoc, no,
Montauk.
Montauk. Thank you, couldn't say it correctly. In that all those areas,
I think you were trying to say Manasquan.
yeah, Maris. I think Marisquan was coming out, but it was
No,
I
that's
just
Montauk.
it's
That's New
about
Jersey.
yeah, it's that Jersey thing, you know what I mean? So to see that evolution, you know what I mean, going on, and to now
Mhm.
know out by Long Island, all that at the tip to see a sanctuary for the ecosystem, for the sharks, the great white. That's kind of cool because I never knew that, and that's the first I've heard of it. So to see that, it's amazing.
Yeah, the Obama administration set up these like seamounts
Hmm.
like sort of out by again that area,
Hmm.
that south of Long Island, east of Jersey, sort of
Hmm.
north of south of Rhode Island. It's like these seamounts that they have protected there. And that's sort of it's like very deep the ocean, and that's
Hmm.
sort of where I think this nursery is for great whites as well. So they
That's
realize the ecosystem. Plus there's a jet stream
mhm,
that goes up that way, and we tried to do a shark dive off Rhode Island, and we all like same thing, the whole boat got seasick except me.
right.
But what they do there too, again, here's tourism as an example in Rhode Island. Like we
Mm,
took a boat, we were going to go diving with the blue shark and the mako shark out in Rhode Island. And we couldn't because just the way that the water conditions were, it was a little too choppy, by the time we
mm,
got out there and everybody was sick. So unfortunately, it just was a bust for everybody. But because that's the
jet
Gulf
stream.
Stream, not the Gulf Stream, excuse me. Jet Stream is the sky, Gulf
Sky,
Stream is
yeah.
the ocean. But there's a richness
Mhm,
of underwater diversity in terms of fish and whales. You obviously see the humpback whales that are up on
Yes.
Cape Cod. Yeah, so it's a very important part of our ocean, this little like New England, New Jersey, New York,
And everyone
Atlantic
says
state
New
area.
Jersey's not that important. It is,
It
people.
is important. There's dolphins there.
Oh man. Wow, Sarah. I can't believe like we're almost into an hour here talking. I
Ah,
mean,
we could talk some more.
we definitely can, and it's amazing because it, the way you are and the way you travel and the way you're doing things is amazing.
Thank
You
you.
know, there's not. I don't think it's funny. Like you said, you lived in New York. You were in investment banking at that time, even in 2008 with the downfall. The thing is, you had like you said, you have to work hard to play hard. And
Sometimes, yeah.
and one thing, and it's kind of funny. It's like, oh, people say if you make it in New York, if you don't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere. I say that's not true. LA has their way. West Coast has their way, East Coast has theirs. I think if you make it in New York and New Jersey, because I feel like these are like the two hardest areas ever,
They're tough.
they're
It's a
tough.
tough playground.
It is a very tough, like, trust me, I know. I'm a little podcaster and probably in the biggest pool of podcasting, you know what I mean? And it I think if you can make it in New York and New Jersey, you can make it anywhere. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. And people say, "Oh, where do you see your show?" Well, it's really simple. I would love to be like in Howard Stern and XM and talk more freely like that. But
Speak power to it. That's what my spiritual discoveries are these days is
and that's why, people go,
positive
"Oh,
affirmation. You could do it. It can be done.
like how you said how you know, Embolden Adventures is your thing. This is mine. You know, I love talking about different things. I'm a movie, sports, video game guy, but I like evolving out. You know what I mean? This is what I love to do because, you know, this is why it's called CVG because I literally have a cutoff shirt I'm wearing. You know what I mean? This is where it came out with my last name being Gomez. That's where the G comes from. So it's one of those things like this is like my passion project, you know, that I do for free. I do
But
it because
guess
I love
what?
it.
You're showing up, and that's what matters.
And I and
You're
but I
showing up and you're doing, because that's half the battle. A lot of
and
people
I
talk and they talk a good talk, but you know
yep.
what? There's no action, then there's nothing. So look at you
And I love what I
trying
do.
and doing. Good for you. That's all
And,
that matters.
and that's all that matters. And that's always the key that people don't realize. You have to love what you're doing.
Hmm.
Because I know people who started podcasts after 10, they're done.
Yeah, I have a
Here,
podcast, but I kind of stopped myself. I have like 21 episodes, but I've stopped. I focus my efforts on other things.
but that's a good thing. I mean, like
Yeah.
everyone's different. For me, I put this on all, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. But on top of why I record video, because I put it on YouTube. Because I want people to see sometimes. They're like, what do the people look like when they're talking? You know what I mean? There you go. This is why it's on YouTube too. So that's why, I'll definitely, it's one of those things you have to love what you're doing. And I know you're loving what you're doing, especially when you're traveling around the
Well, that's
world.
why I walked away because I wasn't happy anymore. It
And
was a
that's
bold move to say, you know what, I'm done.
yeah, that is
20
a
years of this. I'm done. I'm done with New York. I'm done with the stress. I'm done with this bullshit. I'm done. And that
and
was like after the heels of coronavirus. I lived through that in New York City, in Midtown. So that combined with everything else that was falling apart, I'm like,
mm,
nope, I'm done. And so a lot of where I'm kind of really kind of stepping it up is following your passion. So
yeah,
you're exactly right. They say, when you follow your passions, that's kind of your vibration, that's your
yeah,
elevation of happiness. And that's
mhm,
almost like your spiritual calling in some ways, you can argue. Because if you're willing to put in the time and the effort and you still have a smile on your face and you're still ready to kind of put your head down and work because you enjoy it,
yep.
things will find a way to work itself out for you.
Well,
I'm
it's
a
kind of
true
fun.
believer of that
It's
now.
true because when I'm at work and sometimes like we're slow, and you know what I do? I actually hop on my laptop, which is AKA my studio right here. I actually blog. So
There you
like,
go.
like I'm blogging now the top 5 movies of the 1990s. I have to put in now.
Goonies.
Not really. That was it. They were
Ah.
80s,
Oh, 90s, my bad.
90s. It was actually what do I have? I have a Goodfellas,
Okay.
Fight Club, and Oh God, no, you got me
Forrest
stumped.
Gump.
Forrest Gump, thank you. That was number three.
Oh, all right, good guess.
You, so I have to put up the
I mean,
number two.
that's a movie about travel.
It is, and I got number two, and then number one. I have to still do. So this is the
Okay.
stuff I do, and I enjoy it because I love to chat with people because you meet interesting people that you want to talk to, like today. I
Oh,
mean, I
thanks.
actually
Same. I enjoy
it,
this.
this was a great conversation because I learned a lot more about our ecosystem that I knew about. I thought I knew, but I didn't. I didn't know. You really have educated me more tonight than I ever learned in high school. So,
Oh, good. Well, this
but
is why travel is important because
it is.
I've learned that you can't, I mean, now we all know this story now, but back then, even 10, 15 years ago, I felt like I couldn't trust the TV.
Yeah.
Like couldn't trust the news. I'm like, you're telling me one thing, but I literally went there myself
And
physically there and it's not what you're telling me. Like I promise you that was the situation. I was in England. I was there for work in
mhm,
2000, I think it was 2006.
okay.
It was in the summer and they had I woke up because obviously England is much further ahead time-wise than New
Yes.
York was. And I woke up in Sky News. It was Sky News on TV. I was in
Hmm.
Windsor and they apprehended 21 would-be terrorists. And the news was very like level-headed about it. They're like, "Oh, we got them and this and that and da da da." And obviously that shut down a lot of flights and this and
Hmm.
that. So the would-be terrorists were actually targeting a flight to New York. I
Hmm.
was leaving luckily the next day on the American Airlines flight, but this was the flight the day before.
Right.
And
That's
so that's why we now had to take our shoes. No, we had to. This was the whole thing why we couldn't put like liquids in our
mhm,
bags.
exactly. I
These
remember
guys
that.
were using like, yeah. So the whole thing was like really annoying. It wasn't scary, it was just annoying because all air travel was just so screwed up. And it took me 36 hours to get home to New York. And I had to fly through France. I went on Air France to
Oh.
Paris and then from Paris to New York. It was just forever with security. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this story is because I finally get home. Actually, I
Hmm.
asked them to take me to Connecticut so I could just stay with my parents and just
Right.
rest because it was really exhausting. And my dad had Fox News on, and I'm watching it with my cat, all rested, laying down, watching it. And at that point, I got scared. And at that point is when I said to myself, wait a minute, why are you scared now? You were just there 24 hours ago
Yeah.
and you were not scared at all, but yet you're watching it in Connecticut on a couch with cat and now you're freaking out.
Hmm.
So that's why I knew, okay, you got to be careful because when you physically are there and seeing it for yourself, sometimes you realize it's not as, even China, like I was in China in Beijing in 2008
Hmm.
and everyone was going then like, oh my God. I mean, China obviously is a different situation now, but
Obviously,
then
yeah.
China's going to take over the world. And I'm like, not from what I saw when I was
Yeah,
in Beijing
exactly.
for 2 weeks. Like,
I was
it
just,
is not, yeah, there's still a lot of catching up they had to do. So again, now things have changed. It's what, 8, 10, almost 20 years
20 years
later now,
later,
but
yeah.
but that's why travel is important because then you get to see for yourself that
It's
okay,
like,
it's not what it's being represented on TV or wherever
oh
you're
yeah,
getting
it's
your
like Turks
information
and
from.
Caicos. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was definitely, I've heard people tell me how beautiful it is, and I heard people say, "Oh my God, it's horrible." Yes, there is a part of the island that is a little sketchy. My navigator told me to take the wrong turn, and I did. We were supposed to make a left, and we made the right, which was not the right choice. But you know, coming home, I'll never forget this. This has always been the joke. Coming home from Turks and Caicos, you know, you're it is a Britain-owned country, Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, part of the
It's a
Commonwealth.
yeah. So going home, I had my passport, and I've never been through any of that stuff, and I'm trying to get back into the United States. I signed my little form, and it's funny, like this technology was just new. You put your face in, it takes a picture, it gives you a green to go, you're okay, and or an X on your face, you're not going anywhere. Of course, my face had to get the X.
Oops.
Yeah, so me and my was there's it's good and bad. Good because we missed the line. They escort you. I said, well, she's my wife. She has to come. It's like, no, not a problem. But I remember when we were at this certain lines, like, yeah, we're gonna need extra security. I'm like, what? What I do?
That's
Like,
happened to me many times.
well,
Yeah.
this was a first, so
They
it was
profile, but
no, which
whatever.
is
They
fine.
like I'm a single female traveling by myself with a backpack from a Latin American or South American country.
Fucking
They think I'm
country,
a
or
drug
even,
mule. They
or
think I'm a
well,
drug mule
drug mule,
every time.
exactly.
Come in this room. All right.
Well,
In
it was,
Miami. It's really Miami. It's like, all right. But
but it
you're
was
going through my bag, but you're not seeing the fact that I'm smuggling in feathers and sand and other
stuff,
things I'm not supposed to be bringing.
which is funny because I'm going, oh my God.
Shells, you know.
Well, that was the thing. Conch shell, you know what I mean? And so I get there. And yes, I felt like I got profiled. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to cause any trouble. I just got back from my wonderful honeymoon. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we get in and there's DEA and all that stuff. And like,
Mhm.
it's like, are you Senor Alejandro? I go, well, yeah, I'm Alejandro Gomez, but there's no Senor in my name. I go, first of all, I'm Cuban and I'm Peruvian and I'm not Mexican. Sorry to say. Well, you sure this is not you? They show a picture of a guy who is like 80 years old with a beard. I'm like,
Okay.
and he's 5'5". I go, sir, I'm 6'2", 385 pounds, Cuban with a goatee.
Yeah,
How can
not
you
not me. Not it.
how can you profile that with this? Yeah, okay. We'll make sure your flight status is okay from now on. I go, thank you,
Yeah.
sir. And it was the first time I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I never had that happen to me in my entire life. It was an
So
interesting.
one time when they pulled me over in crossing through
Mhm,
Miami to get my connection to New York,
mhm.
same thing. I'm coming from, I forget wherever country I was coming from. So the guy looked at my passport, took me into the room, and basically said, "Why'd you go to Colombia?" Which I did. I went to Colombia one time.
To visit the
And,
country.
no, to go see Metallica, man. I went
Oh,
to
okay.
for the weekend to see
Okay.
Metallica perform in Bogota.
That's awesome. All right, even a great better reason.
Like, dude,
Oh
I went for
wow,
the
holy crap.
weekend. Like, my friend lived there. He had an extra ticket. They were playing in their equivalent of Central Park. It was
God.
cheaper to fly to Colombia than, let's say, California.
Yeah.
I was there for a long weekend. I went to go see Metallica. Why not? The guy's like, huh? I'm like, yeah.
That is awesome though to see, but to see Metallica in a country
South
that,
Americans love heavy metal and
oh, they
Metallica
do.
in particular. Oh, it's awesome.
They're huge.
Huge
Even
fans.
Brazil. Brazil is like
Huge fans.
they are you can actually
It
buy
was
a
epic, that concert. It was epic. I'm
I
so
can
happy I
only
went to
imagine. Oh,
Metallica in Colombia.
I'm actually
And the
jealous right
guy in
now.
Miami's like, "What?" I'm like,
You
"Yes."
yes, I went to
Why
see
is this
Metallica
surprising?
because you'd be surprised. My God, that's so awesome. I went to see Metallica for a long week. I love it.
My friend had a
You know what?
ticket.
That's a story I can't wait to tell people.
He was my dive friend. I met him on a dive boat, the Cocos dive boat, and he is Australian
Uh,
and he works in the coal mines. So Australia has a lot of coal
Gold
mines.
mines, yep.
And so he had a transfer to this area called Barranquilla in Colombia.
Hmm.
And so he had a weekend off and he had this extra ticket. And he's like, dude, I got Metallica tickets. They were VIP tickets too. And he's like, you
Oh
want to
yeah,
come?
no, 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 no.
I'm
I'm gone.
like, yes, I
I
am.
am. I'll
That
see it.
round trip flight from New York City, I'm in. Not a problem at all.
I would have definitely gone on that one too. I would have. That's a no brainer.
Yeah.
Oh my
But
God,
the guy in Miami didn't seem to understand.
because
You
it's
and
a
Metallica? Yes, I was.
yes,
I was also at the Prudential Center in New Jersey.
but I can see
their
why.
their Death Magnetic tour.
That's so awesome. I can only picture the security guy's face when you said that too. I
I
can
know.
actually
That's
picture
why
it.
that's why we should never assume anything about anybody,
No,
especially Gomez,
yeah,
who's 80 years old.
yeah, and I'm not even 40 yet at that point. Fuckers. But I'm glad they do the due diligence. It's called
Yeah,
intelligent. Drop the word
yeah,
intelligence there, people.
yeah.
But oh my God, I gotta admit, Sarah, this was actually one of my funnest shows
Oh, thank you. I'm
in a
glad.
long
It's
time.
nice
But
to meet you.
it's also very honored to meet
Go
you.
Rangers.
Definitely go Rangers. Thank you. Playoffs will be coming around shortly. I gotta say, this was really cool tonight. I really enjoyed there. I did a lot of learning tonight too, and it was really enjoyable to have you on this
Very
show.
cool. Well, have me back when my book comes out. We can
I
talk all about
definitely
it.
will. Actually, I would
Thanks.
look forward to getting the book, reading it, and then having you back on. Because
Awesome.
I definitely would love to do that. And
I'll give you a sneak preview. It's about psychedelics in the rainforest and
ooh,
then ancient alien civilizations in
ooh,
Bolivia. And then coming home to New York when coronavirus is shutting down. And you're like, wait a minute.
holy
I just
shit.
had a what the fuck moment for five
Yes.
weeks. And now what the fuck for real?
All right, I cannot wait for all right, we're definitely keeping in touch because I cannot
Okay,
wait to
good.
get the book. Now
Good.
you got me now for that sneak peek. I'm actually now cannot wait for it.
Good.
So definitely get those two chapters
You
finished
you
quickly.
heard it here first. I know I'm almost done. Chapter
Yes.
23. I'm 1,000 words left, and then I'm almost
Okay,
done.
cannot wait. Sarah, before we take off for the night, can you let people know where they can find you?
Yes, of course. Emboldenadventures.com. There you go. EMBOLDEN adventureswithin.com. Sarah and boldenadventures.com. And you can find me on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. If you want to see that Indian horse relay, little thing I did a bunch of YouTube videos on it, so you could check it out for yourself and see
Definitely.
what it was like in North Dakota this past summer in Minot,
Actually,
North Dakota.
I will be subscribing and I will definitely be watching. So I'll definitely
Yay!
keep
Thank
up with
you.
you that way too.
Okay.
So guys, please subscribe to both of our YouTube channels.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have Sarah back on. I cannot wait. Already excited for the book for you.
It's
Uh,
coming. I gotta
I
keep typing.
and on top of it, since I just got that little sneak preview, I actually cannot wait now to get my hands on this because it has some interesting reads. And yes, let's go Rangers. As she said before, we are diehards over here in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. Just remember that. Um,
And
thank you.
whalers.
And
Don't forget the whalers. Hartford
no,
Whalers.
no, we'll
You
never
know,
forget
you know you're Connecticut, you're from Connecticut
Connecticut
when.
when you say Hartford Whalers and you have the old school jersey, the green and white and the white and green.
I
And
got it.
that's a jersey I loved back in the day, besides my Rangers jersey. So thank you again, Sarah, for coming on. I look
Thank
forward
you,
to having you
Alex.
back on. Guys, as you can see, dreams do come true, as Sarah is a living proof of that. She continued with her passion and she's doing it, people, as I am doing it myself. So as I always end my show, it's nothing but love, peace, and happiness. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.